Hey everyone, welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot and welcome to the thank you reading. So, this is my monthly thank you reading where I just kind of come in and tell you guys thank you for everything you do. When I first came out onto YouTube, I had no idea what was in store. I wanted to make sure that I was able to reach more than one person at a time because I was feeling a need to do that. And I thought, if I just find a handful of you that this resonates with, then I'm helping that handful of people. And that's what I wanted to do. So instead, there's been a lot more than a handful. And you guys have been much more than just a collective. So it's a collective full of people that helps each other, that comes out into the comments on social media and provides information and insights for each other. It's a group of people that is just really beautiful and is able to communicate. You guys have come forth as a group that's able to communicate. Here's what's going on, and here's what I need to know. So that helps to direct my readings. So I want to give you guys a thank you. And so what that's going to look like is, as usual, I'll do the reading and then I will do a little bit of shuffling, and then I'm going to do the extended right here. So there's no charge for the extended. And so, I thought that would be a place to start. There's no way to really be able to say thank you quite as much as I mean it. It will still be a general reading for this collective, as always. So if it does resonate with you, then, maybe take a look at some of the other videos. If this is your first time here and you just happen to be catching this thank you first, by all means, take a look at some of the other videos and see if there might be something else in there that's useful for you, or you might think about getting in here and subscribing. So what I want to do is take a look at kind of the energy that's around you right now. And then we'll get into what you need to know. It's very, not just a general reading for you guys around soulmates, but it's kind of generally what do you need to know right now. We've asked a lot of specific questions, so this one will get a little bit more broad, a little bit more generalized, just kind of what do you need to know at this stage of the situation. And then of course we'll look more deeply at you, as we like to do, and get a feel for where your focus needs to be. So we're going to start with that general energy that's happening between the two of you, and of course we want to mix in a little bit of that energetic and emotional backdrop. Whew, okay, we've got immediately the third party energy coming out. Third party energy coming out, but not in a particularly positive way. So there is something that's a bit of a surprise. And what I mean by a surprise is somebody who, I'm getting a really distinct impression of somebody hasn't talked to you in a while and they are surprised by how much it still impacts them. That sort of surprise. So it's something that they thought would be smaller, and this does feel like it's supposed to be shared energy, but this feels like it's a little heavier in their direction, which of course we see that with the shared energy. Sometimes it'll be more in one direction than another. They're surprised by something being stronger than anticipated. Okay, and then we got the Page of Pentacles over here. Lessons coming out, lessons being learned, and interestingly, a little bit more openness to those lessons. So that is, I like the way that looks, but I guess let's get in a little bit more deeply to see what is happening, especially as we're looking at what's happening with this third party, because this feels like not necessarily a pleasant experience with the third party, but it also feels like there's a fair amount of change. So let's get in a little bit deeper. And thank you guys all also for the wonderful notes yesterday when I was sick. I realized I wasn't going to be able to put out a video, and I thought, well, I don't think I've ever done this before. So I really appreciate you guys coming out and giving your support, your chicken soup, your well wishes. It just lets me know once again what kind of collective this is. Okay, so I dropped a card and it is face down. All right, so we have the Two of Swords. A decision not being made feels specifically relevant to this Three of Cups. So feels like it's relevant to this third party, but it's a decision that they are sitting on. I get the sense that you've maybe got some third party energy that's shifting up on you as well. And remember, a third party is anything that isn't the two of you. So no matter how long it's been in the picture, even if it's like somebody that they've been married to for 20 years and you guys have known each other for 5, if it is outside of you, it's not important how long it's been there so much as whether it is outside of your relationship. So that's really what I mean when I say third party. I get that question sometimes. But there's an inability to make a decision about something here with regard to this third party. Again, feeling a little bit more like it's happening on their end. Um, then we've got the Emperor. They're wanting to take, all right, these two go together. Emperor and the King of Coins, both in the reverse. They're wanting to have a little bit more control over this situation. There's effort for your person trying to take control of the situation because it is uncomfortable and because they don't necessarily feel like they even deserve control over the situation. And yet there's this openness to, really being able to hear the lessons, hear the messages, and acknowledgement of the fact that they're a little surprised by how strong this feels. But it's all mixed in with that third party energy. So it's a combination of things. Oh, that was a lot of cards. And I don't know how many of them we're going to want, but we'll start here on the top. And it is one card off the top. You never know. Sometimes it's going to be one. Sometimes it's going to be the top couple, top 3, 5, who knows. And sometimes it's just that top one. We've got the Hermit in reverse. The Hermit in reverse is kind of giving us that feeling of needing to get some additional wisdom out of a situation. So they have already gone into their thinking cave, but maybe not very deeply into that thinking cave. And this is a requirement for them to go in there a little bit more deeply, I would say. Let's see what else comes out for this. And all right, so we've got the Eight of Wands in reverse. Eight of Wands in reverse. This goes along with this feeling of the Hermit card. And what I'm really feeling here is, and it's not, it goes along with this inability to make decisions, but this is like allowing themselves to sit for a moment and not be forced, not forcing themselves, I guess, to make the decision quickly because they recognize that there's more needed, because they recognize that there's something to learn. But this is all mixed in with kind of this feeling that they don't even necessarily deserve control or deserve what it is that they truly want. So this is a person that we know historically has been looking for their happiness, because with this third party situation, whether it's work, family, something happening at home, they're not having the happiness that they thought that situation was going to bring them. Thought it was going to be the job of a lifetime, or thought it was going to be a happy marriage and what they wanted, or the examples continue. However, they've discovered that's not necessarily the case. And so they're trying to work through that. There's some openness to doing so, but also that sense of that King of Coins, that Emperor wanting to control things almost brings in that closedness. Also, kind of seems like they're looking to compartmentalize it a little bit. So we've got the Hanged Man coming out in the reverse. Here's a perspective not yet gained, but I feel like there's a fair amount of awareness around this. It's why they realize they need to go farther into that thinking cave, and they're giving themselves a little bit of time to do it. So even though this feels like not a lot of energetic movement, I would also say that this is a healthy level of lack of energetic movement, given the fact that they realize they've got something to learn here. They're relatively open to it, but it's like they don't exactly know how to even start looking for it to take it in. Okay, so then we also have Temperance in the reverse, Three of Wands in the reverse. This one, we saw this one earlier, but it wasn't the right time for it to come out. With the Temperance card, this is a much broader lack of balance that they're looking to address, and they feel like they haven't done enough to get to that. So here's where we start to see it feels like it's bouncing off that emperor a little bit, where they feel like I've got to control this. I've got to get things under control. I've got to have it where it needs to be. I've lost a lot of time, lost a lot of ground on something, and I have so much ground to cover. So when you put those cards together, there's a little bit of a feeling of overwhelm, which makes it all the much more impressive here, that they're giving themselves a little time to sit with this. Although there's still a portion of them where it kind of looks like or feels like they're just having trouble making a decision about how to move forward. This helps to explain why there's difficulty with moving forward. Looks like we had a couple of things come out there. That Wheel of Fortune that I just turned back over was an honorable mention. And so basically what that's telling us is there's a fair amount of change coming their way, but I think that's already implied here, and they know it. They know that there's a fair amount of change coming from this Three of Cups, for them, their third party situation. But with the Four of Cups, that's where the instability comes in, and that's where some of the fear comes in, because they aren't quite sure where to go with it. However, this is with the Page of Pentacles, with this Page of Wands, there is a desire to and an ability to kind of move forward. So this is the opposite of the depression that feels like it's been kind of closing in on them a little bit. There's been a lot of, oh, I just don't know what to do. They still don't know what to do, but they're feeling a little bit more like they're going to be able to do something. They also, I feel like, just the realization that they're going to be able to do something has made some adjustments to their sort of their daily life. So a few of your people have gone into a situation where they're feeling a little bit overwhelmed and a little bit like they just don't know where they're going to go from here. It has meant a lot more of a closed energy with them in some cases. And what I see here is that we talked about it being temporary in previous readings. Feels like they're coming out of it a little bit here. But it also feels like, so we've got the King of Coins in the reverse, and now we've got the Queen of Coins in the reverse. This is where their self-worth is still not truly built up to where it needs to be in order for them to be successful. But this is something that they could make some improvements as they're feeling open to going farther back into that thinking cave and giving themselves some time to really think things through. So I love this energy. This is very heavily it's happening more towards your person than it is toward you. All of the things that I said there could also be applicable to you. And I know there's going to be somebody out there who says, actually, it's more applicable to me, or it's incredibly applicable to me. And that may be, but this really does feel like that divine masculine energy, knowing that many of you constitute the divine feminine side of this, no matter what your gender is. It's more the relationship that you have between one another. Many of you play the role of that divine feminine. So that's the energy that's out there. Let's dig into what you need to know about the situation. That's so far fairly positive. Although what I will say is that the road forward is a little unclear, particularly for them, in that they're feeling like they need to move down a road, but they don't exactly know what that's going to look like or which way they really want to be able to take. With the Seven of Cups in the reverse, it's about having options, but not in this case necessarily having those be clear options and not knowing which one they want to take. We see this Nine of Cups in the reverse also. So two things. Somebody's quitting drinking, like your person. Some of your people have been drinking more than is healthy for them, or more than is normal for them, or they want to stop, that sort of situation. This is the sense of somebody actually doing something toward that, cutting down, stopping drinking. A couple days ago, we had someone, and it might have been yesterday or the day before yesterday, I can't remember exactly which day it was, but somebody was quitting smoking in there somewhere. That was one of you quitting smoking. This is your person. So you may have, you're over here quitting smoking and your person is quitting drinking, and maybe that's not you specifically, but that's happening in this collective. So be aware. I've already heard of a couple of you that said, why, yes, that was me. I'm the one quitting smoking. So some of you have a person who is reducing their drinking. Okay. And the other thing that was happening with this is what we had already talked about earlier over here, where they recognize a little bit more deeply with the current energy that they are not happy in this Three of Cups, this third party situation. It isn't the job of a lifetime. They aren't happy in the marriage, whatever that means for them. But there's a sense of significant struggle and a feeling of them pulling themselves back together. So these are very much at odds with one another. I feel like the Queen of Pentacles comes out on top and it feels like it prevails, but I don't think it does so quickly. I get the sense that there's a lot of struggle that happens here before this person is able to say, I feel better about my ability to move through this situation. So if in this example where this person quits drinking, it may be a couple of days before they feel any better about it. First few days of quitting drinking might be kind of challenging anyway, and it might not be drinking. It might be something that's a different behavioral change that they're looking to put in there, because that's a really specific thing for someone to do. I do have a little bit of that sense in there, but I also feel like it could be a little bit more general. So it could be your person quitting smoking and it's really hard for the first couple of days. There's a struggle, but they prevail. They come out on top. And the thing is, they come out on top a little bit stronger, but I still don't get the sense they know which direction to go as a result of that. So still, more for them to do. With the Six of Wands here, that just kind of justifies, or it kind of substantiates a little bit more for them to do. Six of Wands in the upright being a victory at the end of a long battle. And here in the reverse, the Six of Wands is, it's really that the battle continues. Things are not resolved just yet. That's pretty significant. Then we've got the Two of Wands in the reverse that feels like, there's so they've got and we've seen this throughout the readings since I came out here on YouTube, but there is something that your person has a tendency to use as an excuse. It is also being rewritten within their values right now, such that they are having less and less success using this as an excuse within themselves. But it's something they use as an excuse where the two of you would need to meet in the middle of on something. So it requires there to be an emotional distance that is traveled between the two of you to get to a common place. But in a lot of cases, they are, again, putting forth an excuse that says, hey, there's something here that isn't necessarily always a problem, but I'm putting it up as one. So we've got an age gap or political, religious, racial differences, some kind of difference that maybe you don't care about it. And maybe they don't especially care about it the way their values are adjusting, but there's someone in their family who does. Or it's something that can be put forth as an excuse because they were raised to think that it matters. That really is what wants to come out with that Two of Wands. And it's a message we haven't seen in a little while. We used to see it a lot because we've seen the values shifting in this person, and we've seen less of this Two of Wands. But here we see it in resurgence a little bit. With the Moon in reverse, this Two of Wands excuse is short-lived because the Moon is about mystery, and this is about mystery sort of being uncovered. So with the Moon in reverse, they are seeing something that they have a hard time unseeing, I guess. And there is a significant amount of healing happening. So one of the most important things that really wants to come out here is the change and the healing that's happening. It feels like a positive change, even though some of the things happening in here don't feel really positive to your person. Quitting drinking might really stink, but it's a pretty significant change, and it does potentially bring some significant healing as well. So there's just a lot of nuances that kind of impact this overall situation. With the Page of Cups here, it's a communication energy, and it's them wanting to give you an update. They want to give you an update on something that you know enough to have the perspective to understand. So there's something you may get I'm getting the overwhelming sense of somebody sending you a text or a message that they then say, oops, sorry, I sent that in the wrong window. That wasn't meant for you. And it wasn't, but it was meant to get your attention and to open the door because they couldn't find another excuse, another reason to reach out without just saying, hey, I wanted to check in, which many of you would find just a perfectly fine thing to do. So we've got the Six of Coins here. This is the watch out that comes with the communication. If this person does communicate with you, recognize that it's not necessarily going to be with an equal energy. So it could be them calling to say or texting to say, I've got some changes going on. Hey, I'm quitting drinking, and I thought that you should know because you understand what impact it's had on my life. Just that example. I'm continuing with that example. And for other people, it could be very different. Hey, I made a change in the job, whatever it is, you know. But keep in mind, they may not be super interested in hearing what's happening in your life. So they may reach out, say some things to you, and then not be real receptive on the other side of it. It feels a little bit like a self-absorbed energy. I don't usually get that from this person, but it's got a little bit of that showing up with the Six of Coins here in the reverse. With the Three of Coins, though, I feel like if there is any opportunity for communication, that at least the communication goes well, even if it is not especially lucrative. I'm not sure if lucrative is the right word for it, but it's just, it may not go very far, but I feel like you receive them well. You make them feel comfortable. There is a sense here, you've been told if you do receive unhealed communication from this person, because at this point it would be unhealed, that you are recommended to be gentle with them, recommended to try and maybe give them a little bit more understanding than usual, which when you've got a self-absorbed sort of energy coming out like what we see over there, that may really be warranted. Okay, so with the Queen of Swords coming out, what I like here is that this is a slower energy. So this is really somebody getting in and saying, I understand a little bit more about myself now, and I'm able to communicate a little bit differently. They're still a little bit self-absorbed in their communication, and I don't know that I love that, but I feel like it's baby steps. So there are I know that we've got some people who've been doing a little bit of reaching out. They've not necessarily been super communicative overall, but just reaching out, saying a little bit, and then they retract again. Here, they may not retract quite as quickly. So that's promising in many ways because it means potentially more conversation, but I don't know what the quality of that conversation is, given what we see here with the Six of Coins, because that's a pretty strong energy. Let's see what else you need to know. So you could have communication coming your way, but you might think, well, they're awfully self-absorbed today, or they're not really willing to listen to me. Okay, with the Death card, we still have, so we saw that Wheel of Fortune coming out. We saw that there was change that is ultimately happening with this person, but with the Death card, we see that there's still some resistance to that change. So be aware, even if you do see the communication come through, you may still notice that some of the red flags haven't quite gone away, and you are encouraged to be aware of that, watching for that, but not necessarily to stake your entire response on it. Okay, we want the Queen of Wands. Queen of Wands, this is about ability to have gusto and to move forward. So here's a person that's kind of not, they're allowing themselves to sit. They're allowing themselves to dig a little bit farther into that, or to go a little bit farther into that thinking cave. But this is actually the gusto that is required to go farther into that thinking cave. And it matches nicely with this Page of Pentacles, where you have that sense of what your person is, that your person is willing to absorb some lessons right now. I think with this, so I'm supposed to stop pulling cards here. When we get into the extended, I think we need to look a little bit more into what this communication could hold. But I think there's a little bit more of what they're going through with this Nine of Cups energy too. So maybe we look into that. And there might even be, I wonder what will come out with the communication as well as this shift with the Nine of Cups, because that's the portion of the shift that feels like it wants to come out to me. And it feels like it's associated with this third party, or it's been kind of fueled by this third party. So again, you're just going to see me shuffle the cards and then kind of go into that. So you'll see the extended tacked right on to this, but I think that's what we're going to focus on. But before we go into that, we're going to look into you a little bit and what you need to focus on given the rest of what we see here. So with that openness, with that potential for, ooh, I'm messing everything up, with that potential for communication, we're going to look to see kind of what that means. So I'm not going to spend too much time reorganizing these cards. I'm sorry if they continue to be a little bit crooked. Um, but I'm curious to see what does emerge for you. These are lessons that are more or less emerging for you at this time. Not necessarily new lessons, but areas of focus for you. Okay, flow of emotion, continuous flow of emotion is one of the things that really wants to come out here. That's pretty neat. The continuous flow of and jumping into something new. Okay, so you are being given an opportunity, and we've seen this coming out in the readings here recently. There's an opportunity coming your direction, could be with the communication with this person, so we'll learn a little bit more about that. But it's an opportunity for you to jump into something new. It is not necessarily directly related to like the communication from this person. It might be something that kind of is around this. They might contact you and say, you know, I do have something I'd like for you to try out, or something that I wanted to tell you about might be an opportunity for you, or something could potentially come through this that isn't specifically this. You are going to be invited to jump into something, and I kind of get the sense that you may be inclined to do it. It feels like there's another card that wants to come out for this. Yeah, we've got the world. Okay, so we have the flow of emotion, we have the world, and we have this opportunity that it looks like you're likely to jump into. The world card in the reverse tells me that this opportunity that you're likely to jump into, or that you're going to be given, that you will be kind of feel like you're inclined to jump into, is unfinished business. So there's something here that is as yet unfinished that deserves some of your attention at this point. Okay, so with the King of Swords, it may be difficult to get a big picture look at this, but you're definitely recommended to do that. Allow your emotion to really jump in there. So where you might be inclined to be more defensive about something, allow yourself to, at least within yourself, be less defensive. There is going to be a sense of something that feels like if you don't jump into it, it's a missed opportunity. I also get the sense it's a real gentle missed opportunity. So it's something where the opportunity will probably come back around for you if it feels like if you feels like you can't get into it right now, or it doesn't mix with your schedule or something like that. But I think you're going to be okay with it. With the Eight of Swords here, this is the don't overthink it feeling. And I get that don't overthink it bit is coming from you, which may come as a little bit of a surprise because you may have found you've been prone to overthinking here lately. This is kind of going away from that, moving away from that tendency to overthink and moving more towards a feeling of allowing your emotion to be more part of guiding you, where you may have had a hard time doing that before. Perhaps ironically, it is a little bit because you have the time to think things through and really kind of look at the big picture a little bit, which you're encouraged to do, but it unlocks some doors for you and makes things feel a little bit better about opportunities that are and are not available for you. Then you got the Five of Cups in the reverse. This is an incredibly stable energy. What it says is that you're able to evaluate a little bit more in this energy. All of this feels very balanced to me. Your person, this is a balanced energy of being able to say, here are the things that didn't go well. Here are the things that did, and I'm able to recognize and acknowledge both of those things. That's part and parcel to the less overthinking energy as well. And then you've got this Seven of Wands, oh my goodness, and this Page of Swords and this Nine of Swords that come out. Great, beautiful energy. So the Nine of Swords kind of fits with the Eight of Swords a little bit. If the Eight of Swords is less overthinking, the Nine of Swords is less anxiety. And I really love that. Page of Swords is a willingness to strike out in a new direction that complements this Fool energy really nicely. And this is happening with you. This is energy that's coming within you. So you may be a little bit surprised by it. I get that also, and I get that from the Seven of Wands. But the Seven of Wands is I've got this. I'm ready to jump in and do what has to be done. I'm ready to fight for what's supposed to be happening here. I'm, whatever that is, because it's around this opportunity, not necessarily around this person, even though it may be interaction with this person that helps to unlock at least one of these opportunities here. Ooh, and what's this? Okay, Seven of Cups. I like this one better than the Seven of Cups in reverse over here because it's still lots of opportunities and roads that you could potentially take, but you're not overthinking it. You're not feeling a lot of anxiety over it. You're just kind of being able to do what has to be done. And it has kind of a great sense around it. So I see a lot of really positive energy that's happening for you here. And I can't stress enough how beautiful this is. But it's not necessarily easy and it doesn't necessarily happen quickly. With this Ace of Cups, one of the things that sticks out for me is that ease with which you will be able to make the transition into this new opportunity, and the fact that you'll really kind of be able to work through it successfully and almost comfortably. I really like that. So I think we'll go into the extended now. We're going to look into, again, what is potentially happening with this communication and also what's happening with the change with this person, because it feels like it's relevant to this Three of Cups. I think we'll get into that. So I'm going to go ahead and shuffle these cards. Like I said, I'll do it right in front of you. And while I do, I got a couple of announcements or kind of things that I just wanted to tell you as I have been thinking about it yesterday when I wasn't feeling especially well. We don't have very many of these cards, so I'm just going to kind of slide them in here at different intervals, and then we'll shuffle. Wasn't feeling great yesterday, and again, thank you for all of the well-wishing and the wonderful communication. It was above and beyond expectation, and it's the sort of thing that you just, when you call into work, you guys know I have a day job and it's gotten bigger actually. But when you call into work or you say, hey, I'm not going to be available, people do wish you well, but they also are maybe more focus is given to the pieces where you're not able to perform your function, and they're just mostly you're going to hear about that didn't work, mostly what you weren't able to do. You guys did not give me that. You said you'll be missed, and you said we wish you well. And I just thought that was the most wonderful thing. So thank you again for being those kinds of people. It makes a huge difference for me. So I did want to tell you regarding communication, though, my job is changing. My day job is changing. Many of you know I have a family. I have a household. I have kids. I have a day job, and it is kind of takes up, it's a corporate job, takes up a lot of my time, and then I moonlight as a tarot reader. And so that's one of the reasons that I always ask you to go ahead and let me know what it is that you'd like to hear about, but also be aware that I can't necessarily respond to all of the messages. I think that what you'll find is I'm kind of probably be responding to even fewer of them. However, at this point, even given the changes that are happening in my job, which is making it a bigger job, I still plan to read every single one of these emails. So please know that you're being heard. Every once in a while I'll get a note from somebody that says, please just acknowledge that you're getting this because I'm not feeling heard. Please know I am not coming off of reading every single one of these. You will see fewer responses from me, and I may not even be able to. I'm really scheduled down to like the 5 minutes mark. So I'm scheduling every 5 minutes. I don't have any downtime. I barely have a chance to go to the bathroom, but so I may not be responding to those. However, I will be reading those. I will read every single one. I still make the commitment that I will read every single note, no matter what you send me. But it may not garner responses from me. And please just understand, it doesn't mean you're not being heard. Just means that I'm not able to. I will become quite overwhelmed if I have to also add additional responses in, I guess, is one of the things that it's just something that I don't want to be less responsive under any circumstances. And I refuse to stop reading every one. I will continue to allow those readings to be very much from the communications that I receive from you. And you'll also probably see some differences from me in social media, because you guys know I post pretty much every day at about the same time. So I think, I put the snippets up from some of the videos. I probably won't put snippets up every day. I don't know that that's a big shock to anybody, but I just figure I have dreams about the way I'd like to use my social media a little bit differently going forward, and so you'll probably see some of that coming through. So let's go ahead and get into it now. We'll go ahead and get into the first thing that we're going to look at is, again, what really is the nature of the communication that's happening with this person and what you can expect there and what's kind of behind it a little bit. I want to kind of put all that in there. But the other thing that I want us to look at even before that is what's happening in your person's life with the quitting drinking vibe or whatever it is that came out with that 9 of Cups. Because there was, I'm quitting drinking, which obviously very specific. Not everybody would be doing that, but it could be quitting something else or removing something from their lives. It has everything to do with that third party and where they're not feeling happy about it. So that's going to be the first place we look is really around the third party, what they're not happy about, and what the changes are that are happening there. And then we are going to launch into the other questions. So we'll get started with this one first. Okay. And of course, I had a coughing fit right as I said that. I'm so much better than I was yesterday, but if we have any more breaks from coughing fits, I will spare you the coughing fit, but you may see a little bit of an edit. Okay, so let's jump into what's happening with that third party and what's happening with the changes that are resulting from that. This one feels like it's a little bit loaded. It's a little bit of a, there's more to this question than just the, okay, they're making an adjustment to go toward their actual destiny here. We don't need that. We've got, oh my goodness. Okay, so we've got the Star card and the Judgment card. I feel like we still have to pull out a couple more, but this is like a decisive adjustment in their path. So we saw that they're making a change, but this is a judgment, or it's a change in their path, partially because they've seen something that they can't unsee. So if here's a person that has made the decision, I'm going to stay with our example, they've made the decision to stop drinking, it's because they've made, I guess, a realization around what it's doing in their life or what it's doing to their life and the impact that it has had on them. The Emperor card says they're continuing to try and control it. At this point, they feel like they have the ability to do that. So if we say with that example with the drinking, here's a person that says I can set it down anytime. Whether they can or not, I'm not going to make the assumption that they cannot, but they're taking matters into their own hands here. And then we've got the Knight of Pentacles, which says that this is all right. They're going through a shift, but it's not necessarily a consistent one, or one that a lot could happen here. A lot could happen with this, especially with them taking it into their own hands. So if we go with that drinking example, sometimes saying I can quit anytime and I'm not going to do AA, I'm just going to kind of, and not that AA is the only solution, just, saying it is a solution that has a support system associated with it. And if your person says, I don't need that support, I'm just going to be able to move forward, they may have halting response or halting success with it. But the fact that they've seen what it's doing to them, or the fact that they've seen something in their life really needs to change, has not shifted. And the fact that they're now making a decisive movement toward their destiny also is very true. So that Knight of Pentacles says it may not be a quick transit, though. They may feel that it's going to be, but it ends up not being. All right, and here's where we see the start of the nature of the change that's happening in their life a little bit here. With the Four of Wands, they're going to lose some of that stability. So one of the reasons that they've stayed with this third party situation for as long as they have is the stability that it brought, and the stability that they wanted to hold on to. But it seems like with this, that's no longer going to be part of the decision for them, or it gets taken from them. Something about this, like the decision gets taken from them. There's an element of they don't have as much control over this as they would like to have. That's part of what's going to cause it to be almost a halting progress. But with this Four of Wands in the reverse, there is a consistency within their life, or something that's been consistent within their life that no longer will be. But because of the impact that they've seen and the direction that they're going in, to some degree, the willingness to put some control toward it, it actually works in their favor. They're able to make a pretty significant change. So even if they're quitting drinking without AA, even if they're making halting progress, they're allowing a significant change. This Four of Wands is important. The fact that they are going to move forward despite not, they're kind of moving away from what they feel is a safety net a little bit, and for them to move away from that is a significant thing. But the Queen of Wands says that they have the ability to do it anyway. It's like that the word gusto wants to come up again, like it came up in the initial reading. There is a lot of power behind it, a lot of movement behind it, and a lot of potential. So you have the Lover's card, which points back to you. It points back to a decision in love that is not necessarily going to be easily accounted for. So matches with the star energy here quite a bit. And then again, we see this Two of Wands in the reverse. The Lover's card says they have a choice. The Two of Wands says it will require, it's a difficult choice that will require them to come out of the crossroads that they sit in. It will also require them to kind of level out with regard to what's happening in, I guess, differences that they've been having with their values. So remember, this is a person who is shifting the very base values that they were raised with. They're making some different choices. They, like I said, they have this choice, but they're making some fairly different choices, and they have to get right with it. These are choices that impact not just the decisions that they make around you, but also the ones that they make around their home life, their whatever it is that constitutes this third party, and honestly everything else too. So it would bleed over to, if their third party is a spouse, it would bleed over to what's happening in work. It's going to bleed over to their family and their social situations and anything else that they do. But they're getting, so there's a little bit of a greater alignment that's happening here with the High Priestess. A little bit of a greater alignment that's happening with this person and who they really are. So it's like their higher self is able to deliver a little bit more support to them, and able to really kind of access them a little bit more. Has to do with that feeling of going farther and farther into that thinking cave, but it's not without incident. The Death card in the reverse here tells us, and we saw it come out in the earlier reading, but the Death card coming out tells us that there's still some resistance to making this change, because it is a pretty big change. This is a shift in someone's values that they don't necessarily feel prepared to make. And with the Six of Swords here, in the reverse, we can see that life is not necessarily making this change easier for them. So if all of a sudden they are starting to see some shifts and starting to create some shifts in their life, this Six of Swords says that the rest of their life is not necessarily paving the way for this. However, they're moving toward a happy ending. We've got the World card here, we've got the Star card over here, and both of them are reflecting very much like moving toward the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's got that sort of sense to it. So it's got happy ending written all over it, but it's not something that they're not close to it yet. There's going to be a fair amount of work for them to kind of get to that place. And they're feeling like it's almost like an overwhelming amount of work, which is part of the reason that we see this resistance here. But that resistance actually creates some of the additional work that has to be done. The Six of Swords here, though, says they're not getting support from the rest of their life with regard to this. And they may even be getting a little bit of pushback, such that it makes it more difficult for them to accomplish what they need to accomplish. But they're going to get there. The Knight of Swords is almost, it's got that Dragon Slayer energy. We see that come out with swords sometimes, whether it's the Knight or the Page. It's got, with the Page, it's often kind of that fearless, but fearless, but in a way that doesn't make a ton of sense because it's almost naive. But this is a more grown up attitude about it, may still have some naivete about it, but a just greater amount of fearless, I'm just going to move forward and make this change. I'm just going to do it. You know, that's part of what shows up in this energy. And part of the change that's happening is that we've got the Ten of Swords in the reverse here, and it feels like a reduction in that ancient pain. So not necessarily resolving it, but they're making some headway, and they know it, again, with the awareness. So we've seen in these readings a growing level of awareness with them. It's a beautiful thing, but not necessarily something that you can assume. So this is interesting. We got a lot of twos here, and I'm not usually specifically focusing on the numbers, but it's difficult not to. We've got a Two of Swords, a Two of Coins, Two of Wands, and then we have the High Priestess, which is a 2. What's really coming out is options, choices, duality, ability to make choices, and ability to understand the impact of their choices. That comes out really strongly, and it reminds me a little bit of that Page of Pentacles that came out earlier that said they were open to some of the shifting and the changing. This Two of Swords, that one that said they're going to have, it came out in the reverse, and it said that they were going to have some difficulty really kind of working through what those changes, making a decision. It's less their inability to make a decision and more their inability to weigh what they were seeing or what they have been seeing. With the Two of Coins in the reverse, it's just a day-to-day, like a lack of balance. We saw the Temperance card come out, and it was about that big, it's a hard-won balance, but it's across your entire life. Two of Coins has that feel of balance that comes in from more those day-to-day things and the way that you could feel in the day-to-day. So we've got the Devil in reverse. This reminds me a little bit of the feeling that we get with the Star card and with the World card here, because there is a significant change that happens that really kind of unhooks them from being controlled by something. And I feel like it's associated with that third party, but may not be unhooking all of the control with regard to that third party. Also, though, you know, we had the example that had popped out around, that I've used now easily many, many times, around the quitting drinking. But this is something that they're doing, something that takes control and puts it back in their own hands. So there's too much of them trying to exert control that they don't yet possess. But the work that they're doing here is going to put that control back in their hands here with the Devil card in reverse. And here with the King of Wands, I really can appreciate this one, because this is, it's the ability to push forward, but it's the ability to do so without being egoistic or arrogant about it. And it's an improvement, because that's not necessarily something that they've been able to do before. Generally speaking, when they were in control of something, they wanted to be perceived as being in control of it to a certain degree. I feel a lot less of that here. I won't say it's completely gone, but I feel a lot less of that here, and a lot more of them really being open and susceptible to some of the change that wants to come their way. So with the Ten of Wands, we see that it's going to be a battle. It's going to be like a longer road. With the Ten of Wands, you have a burden. This is something that is not an easy path to take. Instead, it's a particularly difficult looking path to take. Seven of Swords here says, though, they're going to be more prepared to take it because of the work that they've been doing so far. But they're going to, with the Ten of Swords, or the Ten of Cups here, there's something that happens here almost prematurely. Like they have an opportunity, but they're not quite ready for it the way that it comes out. So they don't necessarily meet the opportunity head on. They don't meet it with the appropriate amount of, they don't receive it well enough to be able to actually take the opportunity with that Ten of Cups in the reverse. It comes out being kind of a self-destructive looking behavior, but it's about this. It's about this. It's about the that same King of Coins that came out earlier that says they don't necessarily feel like they deserve it. They don't necessarily feel like they have, they deserve the ability to be in control or to get what they're trying to get from this. Nine of Cups, though. Okay, so we've got the Wheel of Fortune in the reverse. That goes back. And that goes back. Okay. So we've got the Nine of Cups and the Wheel of Fortune in reverse. These things go together, and it's like they came out wanting to be together, and the messages want to be together. Wheel of Fortune in reverse feels a little bit like this Death card. But they're not going to have the ability to make the decision about whether this comes to them at the right time. So it ends up looking self-destructive, like we saw with this Ten of Cups, where they're resisting a change. That's what we saw with the Death card. They're resisting a change, but they don't have the control over the situation enough to resist the change. It ends up manifesting in a lesson for them that they are strangely open and available for. But with this Nine of Cups, they see something. They're able to see for miles and miles as a result of this. Like that song, I can see for miles and miles. This is kind of a little bit that same kind of feeling where all of a sudden things open up for them and everything changes because of this situation that they don't have a lot of control over. So it feels like a failure because they lose control over it. They try to resist it and it doesn't really work, but they've got a little bit of that openness to a lesson that allows them to see, but I just figured out what I want. They get a little bit closer to figuring out what it is that they want, such that were this Ten of Cups opportunity brought to them again in the future, which it could potentially be depending on what it is, they might be a little bit more receptive to it and understand a little bit more of even what to do with it. So overall, this change that's happening is really setting them up to be a little bit more receptive, and it's a long, like you, it takes a long time to turn a big ship. This is more that they're in the process of getting to where they're ready to turn that ship, and the kind of the big U-turn that it makes, as opposed to a sudden shift where they're able to say, okay, now I can just pick up and move in a different direction. They're not yet ready to pick up and move in that other direction, but they are ready to start making the shift. So it still ends up being really positive energy, but it has more to do with the fact that they're seeing something that isn't quite working, moving through it, still feeling that fear and that resistance to the change, still doing some things here with that Ten of Cups in the reverse that make it look like they're not necessarily availing themselves of the change or the energies around it. But in reality, there's a lot more positivity here than what you necessarily see on the surface. This is moving in the right direction. This is absolutely shifting towards the right direction, but it's not something that happens quickly. And they do something to themselves that once they do it, they kind of can't go back. It's got that feeling of losing that stability, and once they jump off the cliff, they can't get back on it. Like they aren't going to be able to reverse that. So let's look into this communication. We had communication that looked like it was heading your way. And it's interesting because it's unhealed communication, but I feel like you're going to do good things with it. And my question is, what's the nature of this? It's the desire to make something right. But it is, again, it feels like it comes with this excuse around it. Like the reason that you're hearing from them has little to do with the reason that you see them reaching out. So they kind of reach out to you and say, oh, hey, I didn't mean to send that note to you. That was supposed to go to somebody else. And it's not really true. Immediately, they're going to feel like they made a mistake and they shouldn't have done that. They shouldn't have done what they did to get in communication with you. They're disappointed in themselves. There's a strong sense of them being disappointed in themselves. That comes through actually quite a bit here. So when we saw the Four of Cups come in reverse earlier in the reading, in the other reading, it was really much more about them being impressed, the opposite of disappointed. They were impressed by something, but it freaks them out. It scares them considerably. Here is more of a disappointment in themselves. Like they reach out, they immediately feel like they've fallen short. They've made a terrible mistake and they feel bad about it. So this is where you may see them retract fairly quickly, but we also saw that energy of them not wanting to retract very quickly. So what does that yield though? I mean, is it going to be something that's a little bit more awkward, or is it going to be something where they get over it and they're able to hang in there with the communication. What is this? Ooh, Page of Wands says it's more that they're more likely to freak out and not maintain the communication because they respond as if they've put their hand on a hot stove. And they are disinclined to put it back. They're disinclined to keep it there. They realize that they are out of their league, out of their depth, and they're afraid to stay where they are. So much fear in this. They're so much afraid to stay where they are, they were afraid to make the communication in the first place, and now they're afraid to maintain it. So if you see them come in and make that, what appears to be that accidental communication, and then you see them kind of bail right back out again, be aware that that could be very relevant in this, that it just feeling like they've done something wrong. And I dropped a card down there. It was not to be part of the reading. Let's see, what else about this communication? Because it still feels, there's a sense of a warmness about this communication. Okay, so this Four of Wands in the reverse, they're going to lose some stability with regard to that third party. They're looking for that stability in you a little bit when they reach out initially, and unfortunately then they second guess themselves pretty strongly and have a tendency to retract. So I wouldn't say that 100% of them are going to retract. I will say that okay, I'm just going to leave it like that. That's the tendency they're going to have, and it's like a reflex. So they may do it really quickly. We just saw the Page of Coins go from a receptive position to an unreceptive position. And like I said, I'm going to leave it here, but I think it's more what we were seeing is the act of going from receptive to unreceptive. So as they start to freak out because they hit send on that note, this is where you see them going into a little bit less receptive energy. And they watch themselves do it. So they watch themselves do it. This is the Judgment card. This is the Fool. They start to, and this is, instead of not wanting to jump into something new, that's not what this Fool is. This is, I just jumped into this. I jumped into this conversation and now I feel foolish. It's got that actual fool. A lot of times when you see the Fool card, it isn't about a sense of feeling foolish, but it can be. And in this case, that's kind of what happens. So they feel a little bit foolish for what they've done here. And with the Judgment card, they're feeling like they're watching the whole thing happen. And it feels like it's painfully slow motion. It feels like they're just making kind of mistakes after mistakes. They feel like they made a mistake in reaching out. As soon as they hit send, oops, how could I retract that without looking bad? They can't, and they end up feeling a little bit foolish. But they watch themselves go through this whole process, so that changes the process for them a little bit. Page of Swords has that feeling of naivete that allows them to hit the send button in the first place, and it sticks with them a little bit even as they retract, even as they walk away, and as they're able to watch themselves do it. They are increasingly disappointed with themselves because they're feeling very inconsistent. They're feeling like, why I do this and then I run away, and then I do this and then I run away. So they're starting to see the in and out of their own sort of actions, their own sort of energy, and it's very frustrating. Instead of simply fixing it, though, you see them, again, with the sense of retraction. That's an Ace of Wands, and it's got a feeling of moving away from whatever it is that has caused them this discomfort, which in this case is that communication. And it's their own communication. Like, we encouraged you to be, you were encouraged to be sensitive to the fact that they are afraid. You were encouraged to be gentle when they reach out. And by all means, that's great advice. That's something that you should be willing to do or able to do if you're going to want to communicate with this person. But here, they are second guessing themselves to the point where even with your gentleness, they aren't quite sure how to interpret what they're hearing and seeing. They are, however, willing to lean on your energy as they try and figure out what to do about this. So this retraction may not be immediate. maybe a little bit more on the awkward side. When you look over here and you see this person actually has a lot more going on in their personal life that they're trying to get their mind wrapped around, they're calling on you partially because they want you to help them with that. But then they retract because they feel silly and they don't understand exactly how they might be able to even utilize that or interpret your response. They feel silly even before you have a response. But they want to, on the energetic side, be able to utilize a little bit of your energy to kind of keep them strong. Queen of Swords, again, though, with the, remember how I was saying they might not retract quickly, like it might just be, it might be more of a situation where like they freeze like a deer in headlights, as they say. So this is not immediately retracting, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are able to hold a conversation. It might be more that freeze sort of energy. And then we have the King of Cups, which the King of Cups is capable of emotion. But the King of Cups also has this tendency to have it's a tough thing for them to be able to communicate and to be able to maintain that emotion because they have a tendency to get to a limit, they overflow, they flood emotionally, and then all of a sudden they're unable to move forward, unable to do kind of what they need to do, and that's where you start to see that retraction again. This is a pattern we've seen over and over. The communicate, retract. This happens relatively quickly. So here's a person that reaches out, feels silly, like I said, even before you respond, then doesn't know how to handle whatever your response is. Like they're not quite sure how to take it. And they immediately feel like everything to them feels like they have a shortcoming or they've created some sort of shortcoming. We have the Three of Wands here. I just wasn't ready. I didn't do what needed to happen in the first place. And it's kind of true. It's like they needed to talk themselves into it a little bit. With the Five of Coins in the reverse, though, it feels different from the last time. So if this is somebody that has reached out to you and retracted in the past, perhaps several times in some cases, this one feels very different, and it's because of the way that they're able to observe it a little bit differently. No, this one's not part of the reading. Okay, let's get you your next card. I feel like there are not very many more cards in this reading. Sometimes it feels like, oh my gosh, they're just going to keep coming, and I feel like they're starting to get doled out a little bit more. They're going to come out a little bit more slowly. So we have the Four of Swords in the reverse. They're figuring out what healing they haven't done, and it feels like it all kind of becomes more evident to them as a result of what they do here. So I'm putting it next to this Three of Wands because it feels like it complements this Three of Wands somewhat. So they're able to say, oh, I just wasn't ready. I didn't do what I needed to do. There's a whole lot of balking and sort of like freaking out. There's a whole lot of, I shouldn't have. I didn't mean to. I didn't. Now they've made an impression, and it almost sets them back a little bit. With this Four of Swords, it's more a matter of them saying, okay, what just happened and what healing am I missing? So I don't know that they get super clear answers to that, but at least that the fact that they're asking the question, I think, is significant. Now we have the Strength card. The Strength is partially coming from you, though. So we saw that Empress card coming out, and it felt like them using your strength or leaning on you for some of your strength. This looks like it's successful. The Strength card says that it's able to overcome some of their fears. So if you do have some communication that is able to maintain for a little while, it's mostly them leaning on you for your strength. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but you get to decide how you want that to manifest. And with the Ten of Coins here, I would make sure that you're doing right by yourself. So what I mean by that is that this is a person who may not be capable really of doing or saying the right things for you that you really need them to do or say. It may result in some poor decisions on their part that are frankly, a little bit more difficult to handle. Well, what's supposed to happen next? This is the energy of someone making poor decisions for themselves that impact them in multiple areas of their life. So even if this person does reach out and they're able to maintain some modicum of communication, watch for the flags. Don't necessarily judge them for the flags, but absolutely be aware that those flags are real and that they are very much still working through them, even though it's the healing that they've done to this point that's allowing them really to be able to reach out. So for those of you who do receive a communication, be aware this person is able to reach out because of the healing that they've done, but it's not complete. The healing is in no way complete. Um, let's get you an oracle card. Advice for you in this situation, because you've got improvement and a lot of kind of it's stable energy coming, but not immediately. Like there's a lot of instability and a lot of change that is happening and shifting that is happening as they're getting to this point. So let's see what sort of advice wants to come out for you around this. These oracle cards are always really interesting because it's like we're packing them on top of the rest of everything that's happened here. You've got lead the way and light your own path. And I feel like that's a message that was coming out for you a little bit earlier, because this person is working through a lot of things, but they're not necessarily, they have a lot of work left to do. And so they may not be the sort of person you can yet hang your hat on. They're the sort of person who is likely to come in, still very much be working through some things, and you might see a lot of telling details and, like I said, flags in this communication. Some yellow flags, some red flags. Can't necessarily attest to the color of the flags, but be aware that you're in a place where you've got opportunities coming and you're going to probably want to lead your own way, light your own path. And this person is utilizing a little bit of your strength. I don't think it's going to be an issue for you. I feel like you're going to be fine with that. You'll still be able to, you've got like energy to burn in this. And it feels like you've got a lot less standing in your way as far as being successful compared with your person who may have a little bit more going on there. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up for now. Once again, this is my thank you reading, and I really do want to thank you so much for what you do every day and for the people that you are. So keep the communications coming. I promise to read everyone, even though you may see fewer responses from me. I really love you guys. Thanks so much, and see you again tomorrow.